Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Our mission here, as always, is to take the sources you've shared with us, the articles, the notes, and really distill them into knowledge that's immediately useful and memorable. Today, we are diving into something truly profound. We're focusing entirely on the Qur'anic conceptualization of worldly life. Aliyat ad-dunya.
It's a huge topic.
It is. And this deep dive is built around the source's reliance on this universally relatable imagery. We're talking about the cycle of farming, of agriculture, to define what our existence is all about.
And that imagery is, well, it's everything here. The foundational material is really rooted in Surah Yunus, specifically verses 24 and 25.
Okay.
And the approach used is the classical methodology of the amthāl, the parable. It's this amazing literary tool designed to take these vast, complex metaphysical realities and translate them.
Translate them into something we can see and touch.
Exactly, into tangible, observable cycles that just resonate with human experience.
So we're looking at these sources as a kind of, like a user manual for reality, but it's designed around a farm analogy.
Precisely. And to make sure we cover the most ground without getting, lost in all the semantics, we've extracted 7 central insights from the material. We'll just walk through them one by one.
Perfect. Let's get into it then. Where do we start?
Well, we start with the first key takeaway. The parable methodology defines worldly life as transient.
Okay, let's ground this. The primary term, aliyat ad-dunya. It literally translates as the lower or the closer life, the one we're in right now. So why, in explaining something so abstract, does the Qur'an keep turning to these parables, these amthāl?
Because abstract spiritual truths, they often go beyond the scope of our linear human thought. The amthāl is like an intellectual shortcut.
Right. It lets you bypass the jargon.
Exactly. Your mind instantly grasps the concept through a shared phenomenon. And for this topic, the vegetation metaphor is just the most potent one available. It captures the world's 3 essential characteristics flawlessly. First, its initial overwhelming beauty. Second, its rapid, very enticing growth. And third, its unavoidable and often instant decay.
It sounds like a perfect visual aid for something that's fleeting.
It is. And what really elevates this beyond just the simple analogy in Surah Yunus 24 is the use of the particle in ma.
In ma?
Yes, it means only or verily, and it establishes this definitive boundary. It signals that the essence of worldly life is exactly and exclusively like this parable. It's a sudden cycle and nothing more permanent. It just sets the scope.
I see. So if the world is so precisely defined by this cycle, let's move into that growth stage. What happens when the field starts to flourish?
That leads us right to our second point. Worldly life follows a clear agronomical cycle of adornment.
The parable in Yunus 24, it describes these 4 distinct stages of growth. It starts, of course, with the catalyst divine grace. Resources, symbolized by water, matan, coming from the sky.
The initial investment, yeah. It mixes with the earth's growth. And that process, it accelerates very quickly. As the earth absorbs the water, it enters a state of what the sources call zukrif.
And that term is important.
It's crucial. It means a golden adornment, ornamentation. The earth becomes izayanit, beautifully embellished, appealing. This is the peak. It's not just about crops. It symbolizes the height of human success.
So we're talking civilization, art, economic prosperity.
All of it. The moment the garden looks absolutely perfect.
And it makes sense that we would see their beautiful outcome as the goal itself. But this peak, this seems to be the very point where the trap is sprung.
Absolutely. The contrast between that golden peak and the sudden end is the whole warning. And this brings us to our third insight. The peak of prosperity leads to the delusion of autonomy.
Okay, so what is the specific cognitive error? What happens when the garden is at its absolute peak?
The sources explain that the inhabitants, seeing this full field, the massive yield, they start to believe they are its absolute masters, qadiruna alayha.
They mistake their own effort for ultimate control.
Yes, that's the delusion of autonomy. Thinking the permanence and the mastery of this system belongs to them. It's when gratitude gets replaced with entitlement.
And how swift is the response to that arrogance?
It is instantaneous. It's defining. Precisely at that moment of maximum human confidence, when they feel completely in charge, Allah's command Amruna arrives, and the sources stress its timing.
Unexpectedly.
By night or by day. And this command, it just instantly transforms that flourishing golden garden into Ananzan stubble, harvested remains, as if it had never blossomed the day before. The finality is just brutal.
And we see this idea of fragility elsewhere, don't we? I think the sources mention Surah Al-Kahf.
Yes, verse 45, that's a powerful connection. Al-Kahf reinforces this by focusing on the physical breakdown. It describes the remaining matter becoming Hasheman dry, chaff scattered uselessly by the wind.
So it's about the helplessness of physical matter against entropy.
Exactly. Once the water is gone and the command is issued, human effort means nothing. It's gone.
Which raises the obvious question. If the world is guaranteed to decay like this unexpectedly, what is the alternative?
And that transition leads us perfectly to our fourth key takeaway. The eternal alternative is the home of peace, Jerusalem.
It's right there in the next verse, Yunus 25. Right after the warning of destruction, it offers the solution. And Allah invites to the home of peace. Why is that contrast so direct?
Because that contrast defines our choices. The world, as we've just established, is all about anxiety, instability, cycles, and sudden ruin. Jerusalem, the home of peace, is the complete opposite.
Absolute security.
Absolute security, safety from all defects, and permanent tranquility. It is the destination for those who correctly process the lesson of transience.
So to really drive home the insignificance of this world compared to that eternal one, what analogy do the prophetic traditions use?
Well, the famous one cited in the sources uses a physical comparison of scale. It's so vivid. The world is compared to the water left on a single finger after you dip it in the ocean.
Just a few drops.
A few drops. The hereafter is the entire ocean. The proportion is so minuscule it just renders the whole worldly pursuit of permanence, well, foolish.
So once that grand contrast is established, we have to figure out how to navigate these few drops of water we do have. And this is where the scholars step in.
Yes, and that moves us to our fifth point. Scholarly tafsir defines the world using the water analogy and communal duty.
Shifting to the tafsir, what are the practical warnings that commentators like Ibn Kathir pulled from these verses?
Ibn Kathir, he focused really intensely on this concept of ulul amal.
Long-term hopes.
Right. He warned that setting these limitless worldly goals is a critical mistake because death often arrives just before you can harvest the fruits of your worldly efforts. You spend 30 years on a field thinking you have 30 more, and the command comes overnight.
It's a call for immediate spiritual action, not deferred hope.
Exactly. And Al-Qurtubi, as the sources show, he took this water metaphor and he developed this fascinating, almost philosophical breakdown.
He did, didn't he?
Oh, yes. His interpretation is so detailed. He drew 5 distinct parallels between the world and water itself.
Okay, what were they?
First, water's instability. Second, its constant change. Third, its eventual evaporation, leaving nothing behind. Fourth, the fact that you can't enter water without getting wet. You can't escape the world's temptations. And finally, the danger of excess.
The danger of excess, drowning.
Precisely. Water is necessary for life, but if you drink too much or drown in it, it kills you. Worldly things are necessary, but if they become your singular focus, they just overwhelm your true purpose.
That's a powerful way to put it. But Al-Qurtubi also tied the farming metaphor to a civic duty, right?
He did. This is the most unique part. Because the metaphor for life is agriculture, he argued that the actual physical act of farming, of ensuring food security, is a fardu kifaya.
A communal obligation.
Exactly. A duty that must be carried out by enough people to ensure the community's survival and sovereignty. The spiritual lesson dictates the physical necessity. You have to tend the field, literally and metaphorically.
That really grounds the abstract in the practical. And that brings us to our sixth insight, which is that the world is defined as a cultivation field for spiritual development.
This is really the consensus view. The specific phrase, the world is the field for the hereafter, or dunya masratul akhirah. Its chain of narration might be weak, but its meaning is seen as universally authentic.
So it reframes the world not as a home, but as a place of labor.
A darul amal, a place of labor where the reward, the darul jaza, is deferred to the hereafter. It's all about the work you put in here.
Okay, so since this world is purely a place of cultivation, let's break down the symbolism of farming into actual spiritual steps for you, for anyone listening.
We can break it down to 3 stages. First, you have planting the seed. This represents your niyyah, your intention. Just like a rotten seed gives you nothing, an action without sincerity, without ikhlas, yields no eternal reward.
The intention is everything. What about the hard work that comes after?
That's stage 2, caring for the plant, the maintenance. This is where you have sabr, patience, and istiqamah, consistency. Faith is like a young plant. It needs regular watering through worship and remembrance. Without consistency, you get patchy growth. Without patience, you just give up.
They work together. And finally,
The third stage is harvesting. This is the meeting with Allah, where every person sees exactly what they sowed. The process is precise. It reflects the effort, the sincerity you put in. A harvest is undeniable. You can't claim a crop you didn't plant.
The whole metaphor serves this corrective function. It checks our own errors in judgment, which brings us to our final takeaway.
Right. Divine wisdom realigns human perspective on success and wealth.
So the parables are designed to correct these common cognitive errors we have about what success even is. If the world is this ephemeral, how are we supposed to measure a successful life?
The measurement just shifts radically. Success is no longer the size of your field or the weight of your immediate yield. It's the quality and the sincerity of the harvest you're preparing for the hereafter.
And wealth itself is redefined.
Completely. It's not a possession, it's a trust, an amana. Your role shifts from being an owner to being a steward, a khalifa, and that removes so much anxiety, so much burden of possession and fear of loss.
But doesn't that suggest we should just abandon the world? The sources mention that instruction in Surah Al-Kashash. Do not forget your portion of the world. How do scholars like Ibn Kathir read that?
That is the key to equilibrium. Ibn Kathir clarifies this isn't a 50-50 split. He interpreted it as using 100% of your worldly resources, your skills, your opportunities to achieve 100% of your goals for the hereafter.
So you use your career, your family life, your platform, all of it, with the intention that it serves that greater eternal purpose. It's integrated action.
Exactly. And the most practical takeaway from all of this is that awareness of the sudden command, the amruna. It prevents two huge pitfalls: procrastination and greed. If the garden can vanish overnight, it encourages a life of qana, contentment. Hoarding becomes illogical.
This has been a fascinating deep dive. The core conclusion for you, for all of us, is pretty clear. The Qur'an doesn't demand we abandon the world, but that we radically shift how we see it. The world isn't a home, it's a temporary marketplace, where the only currency with real value is good deeds.
And we can synthesize it all with that powerful metaphor. The world is a bridge, not a residence. By viewing your work, your family, your personal growth not as ends in themselves, but as forms of planting driven by God consciousness.
No.
Even daily labor can become continuous charity, a sadaqah jariyah.
It's a complete inversion of our priority list. So if success is defined not by the size of the field you accumulate, but by the quality of the spiritual harvest you prepare, what specific actions are you actively watering today that will yield a harvest in the eternal gardens of Jerusalem?